I'm always like pulling away layers on a character, and I'm trying to get to the core. And at the core, they're all the same. They're all connected to everybody else. I don't really look at it as a bad character, really. I look at it as trying to discover who the person really is at his core. And then when I get to that point, on the inside, I have no judgment. And he's like, just like me. And I realize, in a way, I'm finding how he connects with me. A little piece of DNA that like connects me to him.
Welcome, Forrest. Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on the show. An amazing finale to an amazing third season. So terrific.
Thanks a lot. I'm so proud of it. Work with some great people, so great artists, great actors.
Yeah, it's so terrific. Let's talk about, let's just jump right in and talk about the evolution of Bumpy Johnson. Let's first talk about maybe the keys to him for you and what attracted you to the role.
Well, I mean, they initially came to me to talk about playing Bumpy Johnson, which I thought was interesting. But I wanted to have more discussion to see whether I would be able to bring some sort of depth to the character. Yeah. And I decided to go ahead and produce the show. Mm-hmm. But it was later, once we were able to develop the storyline, dealing with the 60s and dealing with the civil rights movement and the cross between the criminal underworld and politics, that it became really interesting. And that's when I like grabbed on and said, I hope this works.
Yeah. Absolutely. The show is an amazing kind of combination of cultural history and New York history and a sense of watching characters try to find a common ground even when they're antagonists in a lot of ways. Season 1 opened, of course, with Bumpy coming out of prison after 11 years. Talk to us about how he's evolved for us and how he's kind of changed from season 1 through the episode that we just watched.
I think in season 1, Bumpy Johnson is so full of rage and anger. He's been in prison for like 10 years. It's been really difficult for him. And so I was trying to hold back the anger and the frustration throughout the show as I tried to reclaim the things that were mine and still like touch my family in some kind of way. So that's what happened in the first season. Second season, I think, was a little bit more about him trying to reach his dreams with the 10 Harlems and trying to bring everybody together so that they could work together so that they could get power back. Which is like a recurring theme, is like him feeling like he's being treated like with disrespect, feeling powerless, and then him fighting against that. So he did that, tried to do that in the season 2. In the season 3, he starts to try to change his ways and his behaviors. He starts to try to find redemption in some way, even though he's committed so many crimes that it's difficult to do.
We were just talking just now before he came out on stage about one of the things I love about your portrayal of this character is that there's a sense in him of the intensity even in still moments. And you see that intensity, he's either trying to tamp it down in some ways or he's able to utilize it when he has to. Let's kind of talk about from an acting point of view, kind of having that intensity for us, but not necessarily utilizing it, letting the audience see its potential in some ways. That's a real power, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's trying to hold back, his frustrations and his angers. Somebody could be harmed. He's trying to figure out, how do I cope with these people, with these individuals, and be able to get what I need? Because he's learned that, the violence is not going to necessarily get him all that he needs. So he tries to do it in different ways. And he's lucky that he's got like a temper. I mean, like, because Ilfanesh or Mamie, she sort of holds me down, and tries to get me to run on the right path. Yeah. And he's trying to find this path from the beginning to the end. Yeah. And he finds it more and more through Malcolm and through all of them. The anger starts to dissipate. So you notice in season 2, he becomes like more open. In season 3, he starts to like laugh more, joke more. Mm-hmm. And it's all about how he's like started to access the world because he's trying to get respect, but he's also trying to do the things that are right in the eyes of the other people.
Yeah. Something else I've sort of thought about the character over these 3 seasons is that it seems as if we're finding him at a moment when he kind of Bumpy has to make decisions moment by moment or day by day in a lot of ways. Coming back after 11 years in prison, he's found that the drug trade has changed, the neighborhood has changed, and so whereas he maybe had it mapped out in some ways or kind of thought he had it figured out in the early 50s, now in the 60s, he kind of has to take it on a day-by-day or case-by-case basis in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, but the one thing that he has is like that he's innovative. Mm. He's willing to like make choices, new choices, in order to succeed. He has to. He's forced to. He's going into different arenas with different people and stuff, and he's got to be able to change his ways. And he does. I mean, you see him like switch from heroin to cocaine, which is a big deal. He tries to open up himself to the Cuban mafia. He tries to like make deals with the mob itself. You know, all of these things we watch him try to do, which is unique.
Yeah,
it's unique. I mean, trying to bring together the 10 Harlems or the 10 families from other cities and stuff is something that I don't think that's been tried before. Yeah. And that's what he does.
Yeah. You portray this Bumpy Johnson with such depth and emotional complexity for us. I'm wondering how much research you did into the actual Bumpy Johnson, into his life, into the actual situations that were going on in Harlem in the early 60s. What was your research process like in trying to understand Bumpy?
Well, first I met with a couple of guys that worked with him. One was his driver and one was his enforcer. They were young, but they were able to, Chisholm and Junebug were able to give me a lot of information about how he like reacted to situations, how things were happening for him. And I did a lot of, you know, like there's a book that Mamie wrote that was about their relationship and stuff. So that really helped me a lot too. Then I tried to like figure out his movements and stuff. So I was trying to figure it out through his emotional life, you know, like he was suppressing himself and pulling himself downward. So I knew that the voice was gonna like be in that range. So it helped me find like the space where I was gonna be in that range. And then I tried to figure out his rhythms. So I tried to figure it out through his walk. And you know, I try to get this sort of pattern in my head when I'm working on it. I'll just spend the time just working on the walk and that whatever sound might be, and it'll make me walk different. And so that kind of like keeps me clear and makes me centered in some way. There was a lot of different things that his clothes were really important to me because, I mean, we originally had like one designer and it wasn't working out because I thought the clothes were so important for Bumpy, and we brought in another designer, Dominique Vaca, and that like made him be more like a businessman because I wanted him to be like a businessman. When you see him, you think of him in that way, you know, and then you understand what his business is, and these are just tools that he's doing. So those are some of the things I was doing, you know, just trying to figure it out, and it helped me.
Yeah. Is there a sense, there's obviously the amazing ensemble around you is so phenomenal as well. Is there a sense that Bumpy sort of has to adjust in some ways to some of these even new alliances that are going on in season 3 with Jose Battle, who's in charge of the Cuban Mafia, portrayed by Yul Vasquez, who's terrific. Vincent D'Onofrio, obviously, as Vincent the Chin Gigante. Is there a sort of a way that Bumpy is in some of those situations that requires a little bit of a nuance sort of change in some ways, or a kind of a modulation?
I mean, when he's dealing with his wife, Mamie, he's in a soft place. She's his conciliare, really, you know? And when he's dealing with Vincent, he's like one of the symbols of his oppression. So you see him do that. I mean, Vincent was amazing. So was all the family. And it's just, you just watch the differences in him trying to navigate the worlds. In this season, you get to see him try to navigate the Cuban mob. And then you get to see him dealing with the FBI, the CIA. It's a whole set of people that he has to change his temperament to. Every time he goes into a different room, he has to behave a different way. And it's that kind of way that he's like able to like maneuver. He's quite intelligent as far as like understanding like the way people behave and what they want, what they need.
Yeah, he reads them in an interesting way. You kind of almost, you can see him trying to figure people out even from moment to moment, I think, you know.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Ilfinish Hedera also is phenomenal as Mamie, and there's even sort of a sense of that he's being figured out by her, like you said. In some ways, she's his conciliary, right?
She guides him because, we watch him like try to like get legitimacy and redemption, and she's like trying to push him in that direction. And I think there's a big fault to. There's a scene in the season where they paint a painting of me that she's commissioned, that she's feeling as a part of her legitimacy, but ultimately he paints me as like a half monster, half human being. And that just like sends me over the edge, you know, and she's been trying to help me like figure out how to be in a legitimate business, you know, so that we can live as a family in a normal way, but it doesn't work. You know, he tries desperately to do so. I mean, at the end of season 2, you know, there's like the riots, the Harlem riots, and he makes a decision to like protect his friend as opposed to protecting his merchandise. Yeah. So he goes to Malcolm, and I think that it's these kind of choices that he's trying to make throughout that are helping him try to find some form of legitimacy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You bring up a great point I want to follow up on a little bit, which is the sense that the show's creators have really made this terrific portrait, not a photograph necessarily of the era, and that whether it's the Harlem riots or the assassination of Malcolm X or in the immediate aftermath of JFK's assassination, this show really sort of has to deal with a lot of that. What kind of responsibility do you guys feel about kind of getting it right and kind of the sense of kind of capturing an emotional truth in a lot of ways for us to that moment?
The proper intention to make sure that it's honest in its emotion and its feeling and its guidance. I mean, the first time you say the line that's been fictionalized in a scene, you know, you're stepping away from what maybe history says. You know, we try to like hit all the major points. Professor Smalls has been working with us. He was like working with us to help us stay online. I stayed online. All of us stayed online. Sometimes we disagree with what we're doing and we have to reassess to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Yeah. We had there was a moment where they were talking about closer intimacy with Elise and Malcolm, which is a big mistake. So we didn't do that, and I spoke up in that. And we speak up on different things. We try to guide it towards stuff and use historical events to like guide us in what we're doing.
Yeah. The show also has a responsibility to Harlem and really, you know, considers the neighborhood and its historical tapestry really well. There must be a sense, I'm sure, amongst everybody on the team to make sure that that Harlem is represented correctly, right?
And we've tried desperately to do so. I mean, the first season we were in Minton's. We used a real club, and that was really great. We shoot our exteriors, a lot of our exteriors there because of finances. We shoot a lot of our interiors in Brooklyn. But we've had a lot of people advising us and helping us, and a lot of people that are hired that are from the area and stuff. So
yeah. It's a phenomenal tapestry, like I say, in so many ways that really captures sort of a spirit of the neighborhood and does so respectfully. We're going to take some questions from the audience here. We've got some of their pre-questions right here. Tara asks, what has been the most rewarding aspect of shooting the series and the most challenging aspect?
The most challenging aspect is like trying to keep up with the writing. You know, it's been like takes us a big task to like. Sometimes I would write pages and pages of monologues and dialogues, and I go home and like be trying to master that while I'm trying to get ready for the next day too. So that was tough. But I guess the greatest thing has been when you actually can get it done and it works. And you feel good.
Really, that's the challenging and rewarding part, both in one, right? Exactly. Yeah. When you get it right. Lyris asks, how do you prep for your roles in terms of technique and research-wise? Does it change from role to role, or what tools or methods do you like to bring?
It does change based on what I'm playing, you know. But there's certain similarities. Like if I'm playing, like I was playing with Charlie Parker a long time ago, and I was like listening to jazz music, but I was also trying to learn how to play the sax. I was learning the period and the time. He had said something about, you know, that he could only play the alto because that was the sound of his own voice. And so that like helped me like understand the way he spoke. And then I started to look at the notes and stuff that I was playing because it's improvisational. And I started to apply like my thoughts to the notes. And that sort of helped me with that. I mean, The Last King, I went there months in advance. I started first by learning Kiswahili. You know, that was a big thing. I wanted to change the way I was thinking so that the way I thought was first in Kiswahili and then in English. So that was a big task that I was trying to do. And then I like learned how to play the accordion because that was a party instrument that he was able to bring people together with. And I started traveling all over Uganda, like meeting people and talking to people and getting things. And then I studied Barbara Schroeder's documentary because it was the documentary that he'd done on Idi Amin. So now with Bumpy, like I said, it's different. There's only maybe 4 photographs of Bumpy Johnson. You know, it's hardly any. So, you know, you start trying to take your cues from some of the poetry that he wrote, some of the ways to try to figure out how he's thinking. You talk to his like I said, you talk to his associates that were working with him. You start to study the mob a little bit more so you can know the hierarchy and stuff and the dialogue and things of that nature. And you start to like figure out the emotional core, whether it be like some form of an animal or whatever, you know, that lets you be able to move and generate from that. So they're all similar because they're all like a journey of search. But I guess they're different in some ways as to what I'm trying to learn. You know, it could be just learning how to be a mechanic. And that may take me like in a real person's life. I learn the way he does it, when he takes his breath, when he rests, what he finds like enjoyable, what it depends, you know. I don't want to be redundant.
Talking about, right? Yeah, yeah. I think that there's an aspect to once you kind of find that groove, you kind of add to it, right? Like I would imagine that once you sort of find the way in, anything that you layer onto it as an actor, as an artist, kind of builds into that core, right? It kind of makes that even more. You kind
of all these things just start to add up and add up. Yeah. Then at some point you have to surrender, and you have to give in. You have to say, this exists, not like parts, not in different things, but you give up, you give over yourself at times to play the character.
Yeah, yeah. There was also, I think I thought about this certainly around the time of Ghost Dog, but in terms of both your physicality and the intellectual aspect of all your characters, I feel like they both have such a wonderful interplay that we can see your characters thinking, and we can see them thinking about what their next action is going to be, and within the action we see all of the thought within that. That's a crucial thing for all of your performances, I would imagine.
Ghost Dog, it was unique because Jim didn't have me speak hardly at all, and there would be times where I would just be sitting in the seat for like 5 minutes driving a car. And I think meditation was the thing that helped me the most. I'd meditate like maybe 2-3 hours before I would leave my trailer. And then I would I'll be walking, but I was vibrating a little different. So I think it helps you understand the character. There's other things for the character, but that was probably the key into that character.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say, watching Forest Whitaker sit for 5 minutes quietly is the same as watching another actor do 30 minutes of monologue. I think that there's so much there. And
that's a nice thing to say.
We have another question here that somebody asked. How do you find the humanity in a character that some might call evil? They're not specifying the character could be anyone, but maybe in a character that some might call evil. How do you find that humanity?
Well, I'm always like pulling away layers on a character, and I'm trying to get to the core. And at the core, they're all the same. They're all connected to everybody else. I don't really look at it as a bad character, really. I look at it as trying to discover who the person really is at his core. And then when I get to that point, on the inside, I have no judgment. And he's like, just like me. And I realize, in a way, I'm finding how he connects with me. A little piece of DNA that like connects me to him or her or whatever, you know. It depends.
Yeah, yeah. Next question here asks, what advice do you have for actors in the challenge of holding on to the breakthrough? What's your testimony? So perhaps she's asking about how to kind of hanging on to that breakthrough moment. What advice would you have?
It's tough. I think for me, the way it worked out, luckily, was that I was more concerned when I would go to auditions and things like that with whether I was doing a good job for myself, whether I was getting better. So I would go and audition for something, and it didn't really matter in some ways what they thought. I was kind of crazy that way. It was more like about how I was growing and how I was getting better. Prime example, like I'd done this TV show called He's the Mayor, and I went in and I'd done all this improvisation and stuff in the audition, and then I left, and I didn't think I'd get it, and but I was pleased, kind of. And they told me I got the job. But while I was working on getting the job, while I was working on the part, I realized that all the things I had chosen were wrong. and so I went in with a totally changed behavior, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" I'm just playing the part, and this is like, I said, "But you have these lines." I said, "Yeah, but it's not those that they were wrong. They're false." He says, "But they're yours,"
I love the idea that the complete wrong direction was actually the right way to go, right? It's like sometimes you have to, it's like the path least traveled, right? Yeah. Let's also talk about, because obviously in addition to acting, of course, you're a passionate philanthropist, so pivot from evil to good, and you founded the Forest Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative. Tell us a bit about the foundation and what's involved.
We just had our 10-year anniversary. We're a conflict resolution and development organization. We're in 8 countries. We train youths and women mainly to be leaders in their community. And then they, in turn, start to build businesses in their community. And we finance those businesses. We've financed about 500 businesses. We have worked with about 1.5 million people.
And I would imagine that is something that feeds your art as well, is being able to kind of have that initiative and have that help going on that you're instigating in the world. That kind of thing has got to help your art, right?
And I think, especially when you go to conflict resolution, is there's a part of it that's creative, that's trying to figure out how you get to the source of something. When you're mediating conflict in the jungle or something, you have to be aware and have to be ready to move and do what's necessary. So it's taught me a lot about trusting certain things, and it's the way it's been. We're in South Sudan. We've been there for 10 years, and I've watched it grow, and it gives me a great sense of pride that these youths are taking control of their lives and taking control of their communities, and I'm lucky to be able to be involved. I mean, something that I found after I'd been working with the UN, but I decided I needed to do something more on the ground that would touch people in a real way.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap up with 2 questions. One is, how do you think about acting now differently than you did 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Is there a way, do you still think of it the same, or is there a way that you kind of have built on even just your approach to acting, thinking about performance and art?
I'm not sure.
It's gotten richer, I'm sure, kind of more. I'm sure that there's kind of a more complex sort of sense to it, and probably even the sense of the way you approached performances when you're young. That's still there, and it's just sort of now it's gotten more seasoned in a lot of ways, right? And kind of
the approach is similar, I mean, I keep trying to figure out the next thing to be able to grow. Try to be a little afraid. Know that I'm walking into some new territory, to understand things a little better. I mean, it was a goal in the beginning was to use my acting and my art to be able to understand more about people and humanity, and to do that. Sometimes I feel like I've lost that clarity. Sometimes I keep working on it. And the things I'm about to do now and next, I'm a little afraid, so we'll see if the fear is going to also make me falter.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll guide me to what I need to do to keep growing and understanding humanity a little better.
I'm sure it's going to lead you to actually even more phenomenal performances, I'm sure. Just want to wrap up by asking, what do you hope people take away from Godfather of Harlem, Forrest? What do you think what would you like people to take away from the show?
Well, the show is always, the thing that was really attractive to me was that it was going to be like a prism to today. That when you watch the show, you'd be able to see a lot of the issues that are going on right now, which are, a divided nation, opiate crisis, police brutality, all these different things were in the show. And I was hoping that it would be an opportunity for people to talk about those things in a safe way, and then decide whether they could do something more in their lives to help the situation and the problem. So that's my hope. That's the hope I have for the show, and I still have that hope.
Yeah, it's a complex and fascinating and phenomenal mirror that it holds up, absolutely. The entire season is available on MGM Plus, season 3, right now streaming, so you can go there to see the entire season, including the amazing finale that we just saw. And if I could just ask everybody to just stay in their seats for just a couple of minutes. Forrest has another event to get to, but let's have a huge round of applause, please, for Godfather of Harlem and Forest Whitaker. Thank you all so much.